A lot more than I expected.
Yeah, lots of people.
How many would you expect?
Welcome, everybody. My name is Jared Wade. I am the communications coordinator for the town of Avon. I'm actually sitting off camera. I am behind the scenes, and who you see in front of you is, you know what? I could introduce you, but it makes more sense for you to introduce yourself. Ryan, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, my name is Ryan Cannon. I'm the town manager for the town of Avon. I recently became town manager, but I used to be the public works director.
I'm Steve Moore. I'm the new Public Works Director because he took the town manager's position.
Well, today we are going to be talking a bit about roads. We're going to be talking a little bit about construction, all the good stuff, all the fun stuff. There was a post made on social media just a couple days ago talking about some new construction happening on 100 South, as well as US 36, and discussions happen like they do about, how is this going to impact businesses? How is this going to impact residents? And I thought, hey, you know what? This is a perfect opportunity for us to kind of sit down together, have a nice open dialogue. I've got a few questions that have been asked already. Since this is live, if anybody would like to comment and they would like to ask questions as this live video is going, feel free to do so. We will try to get through as many of these questions as possible. Just so everybody has a good heads up, we're going to try to keep this to around 10 to 15 minutes max out of respect of everybody's time, but we want to get through as many of these questions as possible. So first, let's go all the way back, and Ryan, we'll start with you. Let's go back to when, these projects were started. Can you give us some history on them?
Yeah, absolutely. So in particular, 100 South, we'll start there because that one actually started the longest time ago. Actually, back in about 2014, the town was interested in economic development opportunity, in particular on the north side of County Road 100 South. There's about 400 acres there of undeveloped property. And so the town council and the staff started talking about ways that we could try to get that property developed. And so we actually went and we met with the property owners and asked them questions about what it would take to be able to get that land to develop. And the clear answer we got was that would never develop unless road improvements were done along County Road 100 South. So that kind of started the process. We initiated then a study to determine what would be the best option in terms of a road improvement project along the 100 South. And so we hired an engineering firm who helped us go through that process. 100 South is particularly complicated because it's not just a town of Avon road. It's actually a multi-jurisdictional road. There are portions of the road that are actually in Hendricks County. There are portions of the road that are in the town of Plainfield, and there's a portion of the road that's in 100 South as well. So part of the challenge of the project was actually working with all of these different entities and building consensus on what a road project would look like. So after a couple of years of working on the traffic study, we came up with a design that we thought was good. But we did have to work with those other entities, and it went through several iterations kind of changes and improvements before we kind of got to the final design that we've settled on now, which is what we're moving forward to build today. The US 36 project was it was a little bit different. The town actually initiated some discussions with NDOT. In the future, Ronald Reagan Parkway and US 36 is expected to actually be one of the busiest intersections in the state of Indiana. So as part of that economic development effort as well, the town was concerned about how we would deal with traffic at the intersection of Ronald Reagan Parkway and US 36. And so we sat down with NDOT and kind of started discussions on what that would look like. And so what kind of evolved out of those discussions with NDOT was this idea of an added travel lane project on US 36. The most congested segment of US 36 is really between Shiloh Crossing Drive and Raceway Road. That segment of roadway has over 50,000 vehicles per day that travel on it. So we tried to come up with a solution that would address that. I think everyone in town is familiar with getting kind of stuck in that segment of the roadway when you want to go down and go shopping or get food. And so we wanted to come up with a solution to improve how traffic would move through that intersections and through that area. And so that's kind of how that project evolved and came about as well. So I think the big thing about both of these projects is these projects take many, many years to come to fruition. It's not anything that happens over a really short period of time. And so certainly as we get into some of the questions from people, I think people have a lot of questions about how do they overlap, and it becomes very complicated. There's lots of moving parts these projects. And so I think that adds to some of the confusion for the public as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Steve, a question for you. There's been a lot of conversation about Town of Avon taking care of certain elements, and then INDOT, like Ryan just mentioned, got brought into the conversation. Can you go into a little bit of detail about what the Town of Avon takes care of versus what INDOT takes care of? And I know you're new, and we're kind of throwing you right into this, but if you can give some detail about that, that would be fantastic.
So where Avon takes ownership is outside of NDOT's right of way. NDOT basically is a property owner, just like your neighbors. They're property owners. They own adjacent to you. You have some common areas, just like we do with NDOT. That we have utilities is another function that we have to worry about. But we all are property owners, if you want to look at it that way. And so we have to take care of the roads and the right of way and the amenities adjacent to NDOT's property. Well, NDOT gets to go through our property. I mean, they were probably here. Well, I know they were here before we became a town. And so where they do their projects, we kind of have to accommodate. And so when we have a major project going through, like US 36, we try to find a way to improve our areas that are going to be impacted. Sometimes it's before, sometimes it's after. But at any rate, so we come up to INDOT's right of way, and that's where our responsibilities kind of end. We coordinate with NDOT, we work together, we kind of look at things together to see how we can work and get these projects through smoothly. Sometimes there's just that timing where their project hits right when our project hits, and now we're kind of like, we have to deal with two things. Well, you're in the situation we have to decide, am I going to do one, both, or nothing? And the way things are with the development, pretty much you have to do both, and that's where we're at.
Okay, no, that's wonderful. There's been a lot of questions. There's been a lot of concern online, just trying to figure out, why is US 36 and 100 South happening at the exact same time? I'm not going to throw you on this one, Steve, because I know you're new. But Ryan, could you give? I know there's not an easy answer to that, but could you give a little bit of detail as far as why those are happening at the same exact time?
Sure, absolutely. It was actually the town's goal to actually at least have a portion of 100 South done before the US 36 project started. But as I mentioned earlier, there are lots of elements to a project that can create delays. And so originally, our original schedule for 100 South was actually to start last June. And so we had hoped that by June of this year that we would have been opening 100 South. So we thought there'd be a couple of months of overlap with the US 36 project, but that there wouldn't be that much. Unfortunately, as we were developing the 100 South project, we ran into some utility delays, and we ran into some right-of-way acquisition delays. And so one of the things, as Steve mentioned, the town has to be a property owner. We have to own right-of-way in order to build these projects. So we actually have to go and buy land from private landowners, and that process takes a lot of time. And so in this situation, we ran into a process that we actually had to go through condemnation to actually take some right-of-way from property owners. And that legal process of taking right-of-way from people is a very lengthy process. And so that actually created some delay in terms of what our original construction schedule was. And so we had that. And then on top of that, we also then, once the right-of-way is all acquired, in order for the road work to start, the utilities all have to get out of the way of the existing or the future, what will be the future roadway. And so we have to give those utilities, gas, water, sewer, we have to give them time to move their facilities back into the right of way, into different areas where they can get out of the road work. And so after being delayed with the right of way and then getting all the utilities relocated, that basically put us in a situation where our timeline was matching up with, or potentially was going to overlap the US 36 project more than we had wanted to do at the beginning of the project. So the other challenge is lots of projects get delayed. And so like Steve mentioned a little bit earlier, we kind of got ourselves in a position where the town could have made a choice to delay the 100 South project and wait till after NDOT's project got done. The risk to that was then if NDOT's project got delayed, then both projects would have been delayed, and we still would have kind of continued this process of one person's projects driving another. And so ultimately we had to make the decision Again, because 100 South had an economic development component, we really wanted to get that project underway so that that economic development could occur, and it is occurring today. And if it wasn't for us doing that road work, that economic development wouldn't be following. So it's not always just a roadway decision. There are also other components that go into making those decisions.
Sure. So you would say, it sounds like you're saying 100 South, that economic development. Let me ask you this: what is the ultimate end goal for 100 South? I don't know if that's a you question or a Steve or a partnership question.
Yeah, that's probably a question for me. So the ultimate, I guess, two things. One, I didn't really mention, but 100 South it'll be widened to 4 lanes. We're actually improving the intersection at Ronald Reagan Parkway and 100 South, which I know is also a congested intersection and difficult for people, especially those who travel on 100 South. We're also building 3 roundabouts that will facilitate access to and from the industrial park that will be on the north side of 100 South. And so all of that road improvement, the industrial park on the north side couldn't succeed or couldn't function without the access that we're building as a part of the 100 South project, which is kind of why those 2 projects are hand in hand. One can't come without the other. So ultimately, if we want, will be built, the industrial park will have 5 to 6 million square feet of industrial development. And so when we did our traffic study, the biggest thing we found was there is a lot of traffic on 100 South, but the shift changes from industrial development was going to generate a lot of traffic on 100 South. And in order to accommodate that, that's kind of why we've included this component of roundabouts, because that's where the access to those industrial parks to make them successful is going to come from. And they're going to be able to utilize those roundabouts to then have access to get out and get away from 100 South. And certainly a lot of trucks will be involved with that as well. And so we wanted to make sure that the trucks weren't going to be a problem or create issues in our community. And so that's why we've kind of separated. We want to keep the trucks all on one end of 100 South. And so as you get further to the west, trucks don't interact with the residential development on the west end of 100 South.
Perfect. So we're about 13 minutes right now. And again, like I mentioned earlier, I want to be respectful of both of your time. A lot of things going on at the town. I know, Ryan, you're a busy individual. Steve is still catching up and new to the town, and we love having you here. Actually, I get to share an office space. He's on the other side of the wall from me, so we get to have all kinds of discussions. With INDOT and Cliff Notes version, how does the communication between INDOT and the town, and this might actually be larger than just the town of Avon, but how does that communication kind of happen back and forth? When they make decisions, when they choose different things, is there an easy way to explain that?
Yeah, unfortunately, INDOT's an enormous organization. And so as projects even progress through INDOT, there's different departments within INDOT that you deal with on different projects. So what I talked about earlier, when we started discussions with INDOT, that's with their planning group. But now when you get to a point where something's actually being built, you're dealing with their construction group. And then there's a project manager in between who kind of is managing all of those things. So we did have ongoing meetings with the project manager from INDOT and communicating those. And Steve and I are having meetings with their construction group as well to make sure that we're all communicating. But that's kind of typically the process. There may be numerous people through the process that we have to speak with at INDOT as we work with them.
Okay. No, I think that's a great kind of a transition into this last question. And we haven't gotten a lot of questions on the live feed, which is good. That means you're answering everything really, really well. But there is one more thing that I know you both are really excited to share. There was a question that popped in from a day ago asking about if there are any other east-west roads in Avon that are planning to be worked on at any time in the near future. Now, part of 2021, I know for the town of Avon, is being more transparent and being open with communication. And that's part of why I'm here, but also that's why you're sitting in front of this camera and talking to the community and letting them know, hey, this is stuff that's coming up. So with that question being kind of the last question that we'll focus on, do either one of you want to share anything that's coming around the corner?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and share. I will say that the good news is, and Steve and I have talked, and the town of Avon in particular is not planning any other improvements on east-west roads. We have some development issues on occasion that kind of come along that may necessitate some construction on other east-west roads, but those aren't major capital projects. They may be inconveniences of a day here, a day there. We will certainly try to keep those to a minimum, but we were made aware of another issue on an NDOT project. It isn't another east-west road, but it is US 36. Yesterday, we were in a pre-construction meeting with NDOT, and NDOT's actually replacing the westbound bridge of US 36 just west of the Avon Town Hall. And so as a part of that project, they're going to rip out the existing bridge, but they're going to have to shift traffic to the eastbound bridge, which means there's going to be one lane traffic on each way on US 36. And so in order to make that happen, NDOT has made the decision that they think it's in the best interest of the movement of traffic to turn off the traffic signal at US 36 and County Road 625 South. And they're actually going to prohibit turning movements at that intersection to only right turns. So what that means to people who live in Avon is if you want to use 625 to turn left, or if you want to turn off of US 36 and turn left, you're not going to be able to make those movements. Also, if you want to travel north on 625, you're not going to be able to turn left to go west towards Danville. And so you're only going to be able to turn right. And again, I think NDOT's position is this isn't a great scenario, but the best case scenario is to do what they're proposing to do, which is turn the signal off and try to allow traffic at a minimum to at least travel along US 36 as best as possible. But that is going to create some challenges for local residents, especially those that live along County Road 625 or who may be coming to the Town Hall Park, that it's going to make that intersection not having it functioning is going to be more complicated. The information we've been provided is that project's going to start around May 17th. It appears it'll probably be the beginning part of June before the traffic signal is actually turned off and that the traffic is shifted over. So I think the good news on that is that school will at least be out, so it won't be as negative to school buses, but certainly people who live along 625 are still going to be inconvenienced. And it's probably going to be until November. I think it was November 4th was the completion date for the bridge. So that means we'll also be dealing with that additional issue until November as well. So.
And you both just found out about this when?
We found out about it yesterday. Now we knew NDOT was doing the replacement of the bridge. We weren't aware that they were going to be turning off the traffic signal at 625. So that piece was new information to us that we received yesterday.
Gotcha. But it came in yesterday. We're getting it out to everybody today, focusing again on that transparency and that communication. These are the small things that we can do to just let the community know, hey, we're thinking about you, and we know that there's going to be some weirdness happening for a little while, at least in the foreseeable future. There is one question that popped up here in the live feed. They were asking, it looks like there's some road future project on Dan Jones between 100 South and 150 South, and they were just wondering why property was taken from one part of the street versus the empty field that was across from the street, across the other street. Is there any type of, do you look through and figure out, why certain space needs to be taken versus from the other side?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly it's not as easy as just saying we want to shift a road over. Mm-hmm. It's not that easy. There are actually engineering and design standards in terms of curvature and how you can do that. So just because you have vacant property across the street doesn't mean you can shift a whole road over. It has other impacts. And in particular, along 150 South, there is a large culvert that's underneath the intersection of 150 South and Dan Jones Road. And so even in this Dan Jones redesign that we're doing, we're having to replace that structure with a much wider structure. But the natural resource, the existing creek, is a bigger impediment. So again, there's always other things that can impact that design. And it may seem to somebody who just lives there that it's the easier solution would be to push it to the other side of the road. From an engineering perspective, that's not always the case.
Gotcha. Steve, anything you want to add into that?
No, I mean, just like Ryan said, with lane shift tapers, safety edges, those types of things, they all take up room, they take up space. And so when you have to accommodate other things, it kind of dictates what your alignment is. And the most economical alignment would be the one that was selected.
Perfect. If somebody were wanting to get additional information about, hey, why was this maybe moved in a certain way versus a different way, what's the best way for them to maybe reach out or find out how to get answers to those questions specifically?
Yeah, they can email Steve or myself, and then we will direct them to our engineers for the project. Actually, that Dan Jones project, we just went through a public information process on that project for people to give us this kind of feedback, and then our engineers are able to take that information back and respond to those questions or address any concerns. Once you get a certain point down the road, then you kind of get to a point where you can't change the design anymore. But at this point, we're kind of at that stage. So yeah, this is the time to reach out to the town and communicate any concerns, and so that if there are design changes we are able to make, we can make those now.
Perfect. All right, we're 21 minutes. I've kept you 6 extra minutes. I'm sorry, Ryan. I'm sorry, Steve. Last question. Hopefully this will be a yes or no. Will there be a center turn lane on the US 36 project?
Yes.
Boom. There you
Oh,
go.
no, wait, sorry, a center turn lane or a center median?
It's specifically saying, will there be a center turn lane on the US 36 project?
No, sorry.
Oh,
The answer is the opposite. No, that's actually part of the US 36 project, is that there will actually be a median. So the suicide lane, which is what I assume the person asking the question is, there will no longer be a suicide lane once the US 36 project is done.
Okay.
That will be turned into turn lanes, and then there'll be a median down the middle. And so people won't be able to turn left in that suicide lane anymore.
Fantastic. Ryan, thank you so much for sitting down and chatting today. Steve, thank you for coming up from Florida, because that's where you've been living for the last several years. Making your way back up here. If you have any questions for Ryan or Steve, feel free to reach out through social. You can always reach out through email. Contact information is on the website. You're always welcome to hit that up. If you can't find it for some reason, you can always message through Facebook or Twitter, Instagram, all the social outlets. But we want to be transparent. We want to make sure that everybody has contact information. You can always call Town Hall and get information as well. Steve, thank you again. Ryan, we appreciate you. Hopefully, if you enjoyed this, we will do more to keep everybody up to date as far as what's going on in the community. And have a great day. And it feels weird because you both are just looking at me while I'm talking off camera. So we're going to end it right there.
Thanks, Jared.